Thank you very much for your introduction. So now we are starting the session one, the sociology of health. So I'm Mibako Hosoda from Seisha University in Japan. And co-organizer is Zakia Hussain from University of Sydney in Australia. So Zakia, please get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Miyako. Good morning from Philippines and good morning from Sydney, Australia as well. I welcome you all to the 16th Asia Pacific Sociological Association, this webinar, two-day webinar. And we are so honored and pleased to have so many of you are here with us. As you heard from Professor Emma Porio, the president of Asia Pacific Sociological Association, that this association was formed in 1996 in the Philippines, in here. And then this is our 25th years. We are so thankful to all of you that who are with us for last 25 years. We acknowledge your contribution. We acknowledge you are with us in our journey. Thank you so much, and we look forward to see you in our future journey as well. This session is about health and inequality, and in terms of the topic, solidarity and collaboration are fundamental in facing the challenges, the COVID world. The pandemic challenges individuals, families, and communities. Global health inequalities are widening. Sustainable development goals are challenged, and climate change and global pandemic making more double burden in our society. We are facing this and we are living in a new normal. In this session, experts in the fields are engaged in knowledge sharing and ideological exchange, which are driving force in managing the effect of pandemic and improving post-COVID social cohesion, social inclusion, and well-being. In this session, we have 4 speakers, and I would like to invite, the way I will be doing is we have Miyako with us, and I'll be presenting all these presenters, and Miyako is going to coordinate the reactor session as well as the Q&A. So I would like to introduce our speakers, Professor Imtiaz Ahmed, University of Dhaka from Bangladesh. In this session, he is going to talk about COVID-19 pandemic, mapping social engagement in Bangladesh. Before I give it to him, I would like to introduce him. Dr. Imtiaz Ahmed is a professor of international relations and director of Center for Genocide Studies in the University of Dhaka. He is also currently visiting professor in many universities in Asia and other universities. He has co-authored and authored number of books and edited 35 books, 12 monographs. Dr. Ahmed had several national and international projects and published more than 120 research papers, scholarly articles in leading journals, and edited volumes. I would like to welcome Professor Imtiaz Ahmed to deliver his presentation.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Greetings to all of you. Good earth to all of you, given the time zone. No idea, hopefully everywhere is morning, but not necessarily. So good earth to all of you. I will need to share the screen. I hope I can get in. Okay, lovely. Looks like I can do that. Just give me a second.
Your screen is here. It's
okay. Okay, I have 10 minutes, so I will be very short in my presentation. I start by saying that, humans are not only political or economic beings, they're also social and spiritual beings. And so there are different ways that we reproduce ourselves, and particularly when in times of crisis, some would pray, some would go into music, some would just sit down and contemplate. But above all, what you need is social resilience. And that is where data makes a difference. If you have quite what you call robust data, then what gets reduced is fear. And this is very, very important because As we know, way back in the 13th century, I think, or even earlier, Ibn Rushd pointed out that is ignorance which creates fear, but then fear creates intolerance, and intolerance creates violence. So fear is something that comes with crisis, and with pandemic, COVID and pandemic, fear immediately got into the world, and of course also in Bangladesh. So very early on in March, when the pandemic hit Bangladesh, we got into the business of mapping the social engagement, and that again in Bangladesh, so that we would know what is going on, and mainly, as I said, to see several things in the society, so that people would be comfortable of the new situation that has come up. So I will go, very quickly to give you some sense of the mapping, but it's available also in our website. We mainly map violence in 26 categories. We have been doing it for last 3.5 years. We have nearly probably the largest data on violence in Bangladesh, nearly 10 years of data. So it was easy for us to do it. Methodologically speaking, it was not difficult. So some of the areas that we did, we wanted to see from the beginning the kind of protest that was taking place during the pandemic, and immediately know what are the reasons. So bulk of the protest took place, as you can see in the slide, over lockdown rules, for accountability, against proposed budget, against hike in bus fare, etc. And also you can know some of other areas. For example, there were protests against layoff, closures. So overall, the policymakers, when they see, and I remember very early on, by April or by May, I think, even governmental agencies got into our data to see what was happening at the social, to the society, so that they could also frame their policies accordingly. Rumors was the other thing that went up in different areas, and you can see in Dhaka it was really high, I guess, because of the city. You need city to get rumors, and the concentration of mobile phones also. So you get an idea, and you also get an idea where rumors was less. So that was one thing also we mapped. We also mapped fine, penalty, and punishment, and also the trend. In all those things, we had the trends, and you can see, fine, penalty, punishment in the beginning, there was a little bit up way back in April last year, but then it really went up in the month of August here. And the reason, well, now one can easily see the reason, and it was because of the semi-hard lockdown. It's very difficult to do a lockdown in Bangladesh. Nearly 90% is informal sector. So we have been flagging this, that you can't do hard lockdown. It doesn't make any sense, because when you have a very large informal sector, what it means that every day you have to, survive. So I guess one of the reasons it went up, the government tried a little bit of doing a semi-hard lockdown, but I guess they ended up with more fine, penalty, and punishment. We also mapped fear, and you can see it was really up when the pandemic started, way back in March last year, and then in the midway it started down, and then when the second wave came, it went up. So you have an understanding of humans in response to the pandemic. Resilience was also something that we mapped, and interestingly, we found the bulk of the resilience came from voluntary work, individuals helping other individuals. That was almost 29.3%. If you look at the political, helping resilience is only 10%. And that also shows that the political parties did not do as much, people would expect them to do. University was even lower, is 4.9%. Private firms came a little bit up, and NGOs, but also not as much as the voluntary work. And of course, the law enforcement and local government also played an important role. Domestic violence was also something was very important. We needed to, this was something that we need to see how it went up. If you look at the death figure, which is the red color, you can see at one point it really went up a little bit, and then it came down. Bangladesh, I would say, to some extent, almost defied the global pattern, because the global pattern really showed it went up, up, up. But here we had an ups and down. Incident went up really in September, October 2020, but then it got down to August. If you compare, as we can compare, last 5 years or even last 10 years, it's not that, the difference was not that much. So that also helped the policymakers in many ways. Sexual assault, this is also interesting. The death figure remained relatively low, or relatively same, I would say. There was 100 deaths in 20 months, but you can see the injury really went up. Very quickly, on the violence against children, that also went up in the same period when the sexual assault went up. This is very interesting kind of a trend. The death also, violence against children, 637 in 20 months. We also map Rohingya. As you know, we have 1.1 million Rohingyas, which is a bigger population than Bhutan. Well, Bhutan took 60,000 years probably to become Bhutan, but this Bhutan inside Bangladesh became in 3 months. It's a larger population even than Maldives and Bhutan, so you can see people were really worried. But there too, in 20 months, we had 113 deaths, which would say that it was relatively, well, any death is really bad, but if you compare the data with New York or Detroit or Chicago, believe it or not, New York is much more violent, much more, even Chicago would be much more, or Detroit would be much more violent than Rohingya camp violence. So this was also something that the policymakers really was looking into very closely. Suicide is something really went up. This, I think, is also a global pattern. I was looking into a figure of Japan. There too, I think it went up. This is something that really worried people. Particularly if you look at the death and the incident almost were together. So whenever you had one incident, it ended up death, hardly survived. And the sources were, when it comes to mapping the COVID-19, 25 sources, but then we also map, as I said, violence all through. Now, what it does is, it helps you to, I would say, to reflect on the society as how they are responding to COVID-19. And for us, we could, this is part of the mapping, but the reports that came up very early on, we said that, the impact is not as bad as you see in some of the developed countries. Bangladesh is managing pretty well, and we could open up the economy, even the formal economy. I remember writing a piece in April last year, and telling precisely what I'm saying now, that we can actually, if we can keep 3 things in our hand, what is wearing mask, one, number 2, hand washing, and number 3, physical distance. If we can maintain these 3 things, we can even open up factories and industries. And that precisely, I guess, took place in one way or other, not necessarily because of the data that we were producing, but as I said, the data was looked into the policymakers very, very closely. And since the media, the print media also flagged all the data that we're producing in the beginning every week, and then when things slowed down every 2 weeks, it also showed that the fear that came up very early on was not there. But let me stop here. I think I've done my 10 minutes, but if you have any questions at the end, I can definitely come back. Thank you very much.